Facts the soldiers had discovered made him weak in the knees and instantly hit him with the desire to go back to the life he'd loved. "Stay back and rescue the man," he said briskly to the others. "I'm going to take a closer look." He couldn't make out very much in the dim light, but he could see that this must have been some sort of library or special burial chamber. The condition of the stones, the statues, and the few characters he could make out in the dust-filled air suggested Celtic or Roman origins. That didn't make sense, though, since the Celts were assimilated and converted to Christianity after the Romans conquered them. They would hardly have created this mysterious collection after that. Only the Druids would have had the knowledge and perspective to have hidden these treasures. But that would also have been impossible, because the Druids only passed on their knowledge orally. Was this cave a sanctuary? A place to preserve knowledge and culture? If so, who had built it? Questions shot through McClary's head like the salvos of a machine gun, but he wouldn't find any answers now, not under these miserable conditions. There were few people who knew as well as he that it wasn't the Romans and the Greeks, or the Germanic people, who had first shaped Europe. It was the Celts. True, the fate of Celtic independence was virtually sealed by Julius Caesar, but the culture and its natural religion continued for a long time, until Christianity became the prevailing doctrine in 4th century Rome. McClary knew that the loss of Celtic culture had not received nearly enough attention, and its significance reached to the present day. Was this the reason he'd happened upon these artifacts? Breathing heavily, handicapped by the darkness and the dust that filled the cave, he eyed the pieces as carefully as he could. He saw scrolls that shouldn't have been able to survive 100 years in this region, but they were clearly ancient. Whoever had made this place had to have looked long and hard for such an unusually dry and warm cave. There could only be one explanation. They wanted to make sure that these testaments to the past would endure, so that one day in the future someone would discover them and show them to the world. But why? Among the stone tablets, statues, scrolls, and decorative pieces, a lone chest caught his attention. It was covered with dust and partially disintegrated, but he could make out something through the filth that was written on the top. Disturbatio Fontis. Was it possible? Was he really standing in front of the records of the persecuted pagans? McClary knew that there were German troops in front of them, and Tito's troops behind. There was no way he could salvage these artifacts now, and there was very little time to stash them away. "Damn it," he thought. "Why now? What should I do?" In spite of his confusion and frustration, McClary felt a familiar and welcome energy. It was as though he were standing in his lecture hall, surrounded by students hungry for knowledge, devouring his archaeological histories like fairy tales. "Major?" McClary jumped. For the briefest instant, he had been so lost in thought that he had forgotten this horrible war. He ordered Smith and Rudy to bring some new chests from the unit's supply over to hold the most important pieces, while he tried to think of a way to transport them securely through Austria, and then through France to England. The sheer mass of these invaluable cultural treasures created an almost insurmountable obstacle. He felt like one of his medics, who had to decide far too often who they could save, and who they had to leave to die. Even if he chose to transport some of the artifacts, it would be impossible to do so under these circumstances without destroying something, especially the parchment scrolls. The fact that they were in such good condition was a miracle. With the oxygen that had rushed in with the cave's collapse, the papyrus wouldn't last long. In ancient times, Egypt was one of the few places on Earth where papyrus could be preserved for an extended period without any special conservation method. In damper regions, scrolls were copied for preservation, and it was not uncommon for adulterations to creep in. He looked at the writing again. It suggested a time only a few centuries after Christ. If this trove were a testament to that period, it would be invaluable to researchers. McClary almost forgot the circumstances that had brought him here, circumstances that made it hardly seem sensible to think about the future, even for a second. There were only a few hours until he would most likely receive orders to invade Klagenfurt. How could he organize a secure and inconspicuous transport now? McClary was well respected and trusted by his soldiers. No major